music, here's to crowds, here's to magic stories and laughs, here's to learning, you and me, here's to fun.
It's Chasey!
Hey everybody, it's me, Chasey, and today I've got a very special treat for you because it's Christmas and I love Christmas stories. So today I've not got one, but two Christmas stories to read to you. One is called Santa Claus Has a Busy Night, which is a very old story. And this one is called Who Will You Meet on Santa Claus Street? I think we should start with Santa Claus Has a Busy Night. Now this was written by Lynne Bradbury and illustrated by Jon Davis. Santa Claus had been busy for weeks. He had hundreds of letters from boys and girls, all telling him what presents they would like for Christmas. He had sorted out the letters and made a long, long list. And then, on the other side, he had written the children's names and where they lived so that he would know where to go. At last, it was Christmas Eve, the night before Christmas. Santa Claus had been even busier that day, filling his sacks and loading them onto his sleigh. He had fed his reindeer and now they were standing together, ready to pull the heavy load. Rudolph, with his bright red nose, was at the front to lead the others. Then Santa Claus went to get ready. First he put on his red trousers, then he put on his red coat. Next, he put on his red hat, and last, he put on his big black boots. By now, all the children would be going to bed. Santa Claus hoped that they would soon be asleep. He had so many places to visit, it was time to go. Up into the sky, through the clouds and back down over sleeping towns and cities. Down to the rooftops, Santa Claus stopped his sleigh. Then Santa Claus took one of his heavy sacks and climbed down the first chimney. He filled the stockings and even some pillowcases for big toys. Every time Santa Claus left a present, he ticked a name off on his list. Some people left Santa Claus a mince pie or a piece of cake. He was very pleased. Climbing up and down chimneys made him very hungry. Being Santa Claus wasn't an easy job. There were houses where the chimneys were too small and houses with no chimneys at all. Some children were sick and in hospital and others were staying at a different house. But Santa Claus didn't forget anyone. He climbed hundreds of stairs and tiptoed in and out of dark rooms to leave his presents. And all the time, Rudolph and the other reindeer pulled his sleigh from place to place. Santa Claus went to places which were cold and snowy. He went to places which were wet and windy and nearly lost his hat. He flew over high mountains, over sandy deserts, and over the sea. This time, he was on his way to a hot country where it was summer and not winter. Phew! He wished that he could take off his thick red coat and his big furry boots. Christmas Day was going to be a very hot day for these children. At last, Santa Claus reached the last name on his list. He had finished. All the sacks were empty. It would be daylight soon and the children would be waking up. "Time to go home, Rudolph," he said. When Santa Claus got back home, the first thing he did was to feed his tired reindeer and put them to bed. Then he went into his house, took off his hat, his coat, and his boots, and sat in his big chair by the fire. It was Christmas Day. Santa Claus had thought about all the places he had visited. By now, all the children would be awake. He hoped that they would be pleased with their presents. Some children hadn't been given all the things that they'd asked for. Santa couldn't carry any more. Some children would remember to say thank you, and others would forget. Oh well, Santa thought. And Santa Claus went to sleep. But there's one thing we've forgotten in this story. Who delivers presents to Santa Claus? I don't know. Who does deliver presents to Santa Claus? Maybe Mrs. Claus or one of the elves. I don't know. I hope he gets a present. He brings us all lots of lovely things, doesn't he? Anyway, that was Santa Claus Has a Busy Night. Now, let's read this story. This is called Who Will You Meet on Santa Claus Street? And this is written by Gareth Peter and illustrated by Tim Budgen. Wow, let's begin. The rooftops are snowy, as white as a sheet, and everyone's busy on Santa Claus Street. You see, all of the elves have a challenge today to gather the presents and load up the sleigh. Let's say Merry Christmas to Wrapping Elf, Flapping Elf. Shh, I think she's Napping Elf. Picky Elf, Licky Elf, Getting Very Sticky Elf. Hairy Elf, Scary Elf, Sparkly Treetop Fairy Elf. Reading Elf, Feeding Elf, Carol Sing-Song Leading Elf. Sneaky Elf, Cheeky Elf, Looks a Little Peaky Elf. Handy Elf, Candy Elf, Dreams of Sun and Sandy Elf. Weeping Elf, Sweeping Elf, Creeping, Peeping, Leaping Elf. Twisting Elf, Listing Elf, Very Stressed Assisting Elf. Sewing Elf, Glowing Elf, Shouldn't You Be Going Elf? As Santa's here, the sleigh is full. It's nearly time to fly. And now the reindeer have arrived, we have to say goodbye. But first, let's just check the list. Whoops! One more elf to meet. Say ho 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 to yourself. Welcome to our street. That was a funny book. I didn't expect that. That was brilliant. I think that's going to be one of my new Christmas favourites. Well, I hope you've enjoyed listening to these two stories today, and I hope it's put you in a really lovely Christmas mood. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year to you all, and I hope you get everything that you deserve from Santa. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out some of my other videos too. See you soon. Bye.